Biden escalates war against Russia, sends F-16s.
Biden has informed the G7 allies here that the United States has agreed to allow Ukrainian pilots to begin training to fly American-made F-16 fighter jets. This move represents a major reversal for Biden and a wish fulfilled for Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, who has pleaded for F-16s for months.
Oh, goody, an escalation of war. Now, in this case...
Oh. Wow, that's pretty overt. Right off the bat.
As you heard in that report, the Biden administration will now allow our European allies to transfer American-made F-16s to Ukraine, something that was considered a red line by the Biden administration previously, especially when we're dealing with another nuclear power, Russia. And of course, Vladimir Putin has responded to this by threatening nuclear war with the United States.
Okay, to be fair, he's been doing that like every Tuesday for the past 9 years, so...
It's unsurprising. It's not the first time he's done it, but maybe sending over offensive weaponry to Ukraine, not the best idea.
I don't like, this is a made up term. Weaponry is always offensive. I don't like this. What does that mean? Whether or not a weapon is offensive or defensive is in how it's used. It's like when China complained we were sending them offensive weapons in Taiwan, like some specific type of weapon that could magically be used in an offensive capacity, which is of course all weapons. That's how they work, with the exception of, I don't know, Israel's the Iron Dome. I mean, maybe there are a couple of weapons that can only be used defensively, but like obviously that's, that's the not the norm.
And there is no end in sight for this war. In fact, the idea of sending F-16s to Ukraine makes it abundantly clear that the United States and its allies intend to continue engaging in this war for at least 18 months.
We're not engaging in the war. We're providing resources to Ukraine engaging in the war. I think we could stand to be a little bit more careful with our language on this one, considering the fact that implying that we're engaged in it is suggesting that we're at war with Russia, which we are definitionally not. Neither country acknowledges this as a war between either of us.
Possibly more, because there's some training necessary in order to ensure that members of Ukraine's military are able to operate F-16s.
Not 18 months of training, though. I mean, I'm sure it takes a while to learn how to fly a new kind of jet, but I don't think, with a trained fighter pilot, I don't think they would need 18 months to train on that. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of these pilots have actually been getting trained in F-16s already, that Ukraine sent out air servicemen to get training in other countries, so that if Ukraine ever did receive these planes, they would know how to use them when they arrive. They've done that with other vehicles, I believe, so it would make sense they've been consistent in that.
We'll get to all those details in just a moment. Now, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has been asking for F-16 since the beginning of this war, and the United States, under Biden's leadership, had refused to do so. They saw it as an escalation of war. The next video has some more details on this.
The F-16, the backbone of the US air fleet, can travel twice the speed of sound, drop bombs on ground targets, and fire air-to-air missiles. Ukraine believes these planes provide a distinct advantage in the skies, enabling them to shoot down incoming cruise missiles and fighter jets, fending off Russia's punishing air assaults. But up till now, providing F-16s has been a red line for President Biden.
Well, they are pretty expensive. I mean, we can afford it. It's not going to bankrupt us. We've got plenty of Pentagon money and munitions to spare. But yeah, they're pretty expensive.
Reluctant to provoke an unpredictable escalation from Russia. Still, in a February interview with David, Biden did leave the door open just a crack.
We know President Zelensky continues to say what he really needs are F-16s. Will you send F-16s?
Look, we're sending him what our seasoned military thinks he needs now.
You don't think he needs F-16s now?
No, he doesn't need F-16s now.
That was what he said in February, but clearly he has now changed his tune. Now, for the moment being, there's no indication that the United States is going to transfer its F-16s to Ukraine. It's just that our allies will be doing so. But let's keep it real. Eventually, the United States will be doing so as well, because it's an opportunity for, we know what it's an opportunity for. Send them more weapons. that creates a need for the United States to replenish its weaponry. And that means more money for the defense contractors who are absolutely salivating.
Okay, here's a quick question out of curiosity, all right? Very much out of curiosity, okay? If the defense contractors need us to supply munitions and vehicles to Ukraine to justify us spending more money on buying them back from them, why has our defense budget continued to rise and rise and rise without any meaningful war? I mean, for decades now, sure, we had Iraq and we had Afghanistan, but after those petered out, like, our budget has continued to rise for military spending absent any new threat. The idea that the only reason we could be spending money on Ukraine is to enrich our defense contractors is unironically right-wing propaganda. Follow-up question, if that is the case, then why are the far-right people who are totally in favor of more military spending opposing backing Ukraine? Why are people on the Republican side, the MAGA crowd, anti-Ukraine, anti-giving them money and resources, even as they're pro-enriching our defense budget? Maybe there's a disconnect here. Maybe there's something else going on, some kind of ideological position, conflict.
Elevating over this war that is now quickly becoming an endless war. And I'll explain more of that in just a moment. But Cenk, I wanted to give you an opportunity to jump in.
Yeah, so guys, the administration is partly worried about it because it's an escalation. I would say that's the minority concern. They're not really talking about the majority concern, which they mentioned in some articles, but they mentioned it in passing as if it's the smaller concern. I don't think so at all, for reasons I'll explain here. The larger concern is they don't want the technology to fall into the wrong hands, mainly the Russian hands. Because it's one thing for the Ukrainians to have an F-16, it's another thing for an F-16 to get shot down in area controlled by Russia, where they could then—
I'm so sorry, I must have missed that. I was looking at chat.
Smaller concern. I don't think so at all, for reasons I'll explain here. The larger concern is they don't want the technology to fall into the wrong hands.
F-16 original date? First flew in 1976. I don't think that's much of a concern. This isn't like classified, I'm pretty sure.
Mainly the Russian hands. Because it's one thing for the Ukrainians to have an F-16, it's another thing for an F-16 to get shot down in area controlled by Russia, where they could then just take the F-16 and reverse engineer it, right? And so now you might think, well, okay, that's a real national security issue for us because F-16s are excellent and it's a rare thing we do right in the US military in terms of technology. And so that could be a national security problem for us. Yeah, maybe that's a little bit of a concern too.
It's not secret technology. It's not hidden.
The larger concern is the people that sell the F-16 don't want anyone else to be able to produce cheaper F-16s without going through them.
Are you kidding me? You think the Russians are going to find a downed F-16, technology that was developed half a century ago? That's not a joke, 76, that's half a century ago. And then the Russians are going to develop a supply line to produce that fighter jet and undercut American military corporations? Is that okay? All right. What the fuck? What the fuck is going on? What the fuck is going on right now at TYT? What's happening?
The defense contractors.
You know what? That is.
Was there a gas leak in the studio?
The most important part of the story, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, God forbid that these defense contractors, these military these military grade weaponry manufacturers have some competition. I mean, that's the real.
You really think that some Russian company is going to stumble across the ruins of a F-16 that's been downed and then just develop a superior production process for that specific line? And then, let me get this correct, you think that America would buy the Russian company produced F-16s rather than defense industries in America produced F-16s? You think they're worried, like Raytheon or whatever is worried that Russia will produce a cheaper F-16 and that we would buy those F-16s, the outdated fighter jets, from an enemy country. This is insane. I can't. This is like breaking points here. Holy shit. What is going on? Oh my God. Bro, I can't believe I'm saying Hassan's going to come back here and might have a more sane position on Ukraine than his f***ing uncle. Oh my God.
Real war we should be concerned about, Uygur.
Exactly, but isn't it interesting that the media doesn't mention that?
No, it's not interesting.
My God.
It's the most expected part of the story imaginable.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we went through the same thing with the M1 Abrams tank earlier in this war. And so the defense contractors are super nervous about their beloved technology, which they have now taken billions, if not trillions of dollars off the hands of US taxpayers and taxpayers in
Trillions?
in Europe, et cetera. That technology falling into hands that would allow them to not have a monopoly on those weapons, okay? And so that's the iceberg of this story that no one else is talking about. By the way, also true of the so-called-
The M1 Abrams is also outdated. We're developing the next one. We're already building the next tank. We're not concerned about... What is going on? This is like genuinely concerning. What happened? Fine.
Depending on accounting error that you might have heard about. We're going to talk about that later in the show.
Now, John Kirby, who's a spokesperson for the White House, sat down for an interview about this new decision.
A new stage in terminal anti-Americanism, I think. But they're liberals. Anna and Cenk are liberals. They're not leftists. Where are they getting this from?
To allow for F-16s to be sent to Ukraine. And the big question is, doesn't the Biden administration see this as an escalation of war? Why the 180 on this topic? Well, he claims no, not at all. Let's watch.
Just a short time ago, the Kremlin responded, calling this a, quote, colossal risk. President Biden's concern from the very beginning with providing F-16s was that it could potentially escalate this war. What assurances does the U.S. have from Ukraine that they won't use these F-16s to fire into Russia that could widen this war?
I will tell you, Peter, we have had multiple conversations with the Ukrainians about the risk of escalation here. Nobody wants to see World War III. And we have made it clear that we're not going to encourage or enable Ukraine to strike inside Russian territory. Now, the Ukrainians have been very honest with us and very forthcoming and quite frankly, very responsible when it comes to the kind of support we're giving them, not using that to go inside Russia.
Cool, I'm sure Ukraine would never do any type of offensive attack or would never even consider attacking Russia.
Yeah.
Except here's a story that broke today. Ukrainian official confirms group of Ukraine-allied Russians crossed into Russian territory and attacked town.
That's not an F-16. That doesn't say F-16. He just said they wouldn't do this with the F-16. That's not an F-16.
Let me give you some more context, but before I do, Cenk, seems
Yeah.
like you have some thoughts on this.
I do. Listen, guys, the Ukrainians are not going to want to violate an agreement with America because America could cut off further weapons, et cetera, that they need. So would they attack the Russians right away? No, unlikely with the F-16s. But it depends on how desperate they get. So let's say they think that we're not going to send them any more aid, which is a possibility at some point. They think, well, we already have the F-16s. And understand why they might want to use them inside Russia, because Russia's firing missiles at Ukraine from inside Russia. And the only way to stop those is to bomb them inside Russia. So it only depends on how desperate the Ukrainians are. Once they have them, they have them.
So can we just at least be blunt about how this is an escalation of war? Come on, Cenk. Really?
It is.
Like
I know.
You really think Ukraine is under the impression that if they violate any agreement with the United States, that the United States would stop sending them weapons? Are you?
Yes. Aid from America has already been pretty politically contentious, and American support for funding Ukraine arms has been going down with time. So I imagine that, yes, a highly publicized incident of them violating a pre-existing agreement conditional to our support would actually probably be a pretty big deal. So yeah.
Insane?
No,
Come on.
And look, there's a reason why we would care, and we don't want instability because that could affect the stock market. So it's not like we have any pure motives, but we do have motives for not escalating past this. But this is definitely an escalation. And by the way, don't get me wrong.
This is, man, this is like gray zone tier. This is what happens when you're so desperate to come across as an economic populist that you ignore literally any analysis other than like 4th grade brain dead head soup. It's the corporations, man. It's the money. Like, as though there's nothing else. Like, that's not the only, from any economic perspective, from any social perspective, that's not the only force in the universe. There are other things that can happen. Like, imagine like somebody trying to explain the rise of Nazi Germany from that perspective. Like, well, corporations wanted to make a lot of money, so then they did the Holocaust, and yeah, it was like to make money. It was all to enrich crematorium manufacturers. Yeah, like what? It's like it's so brain dead.
Will we escalate even further? It's enormously possible.
This is a disaster.
But guys, there's the theater as always and the real world as always. And the theater is, my God, we care about those brave Ukrainians. And is there some truth to that? Yeah, I think there's some truth to that for some people, right? But that's mainly the theater. When you get to the real world is how much are people going to make off of it? And so
that's literally it. That's the only consideration here. Okay. Oh my God. What about not just like corpos making money? What about the perceived value in every conceivable sense of political stability in Europe and not having Russia bordering even more NATO countries? God forbid, bordering Poland. Like, this is literally dehumanizing Ukrainians? Yeah, it is, because it always is, because they can't do anything critical. The weird thing is, I am perfectly capable of making arguments, not ones I necessarily believe in, but arguments nonetheless, critical of supporting Ukraine monetarily through military arms without dehumanizing Ukrainians or ignoring like their concerns or considerations or morally demonizing them. I can do that. It's very possible. I would disagree with those arguments, but I could make them. I would respect them if they were made by another person. I think they would be worth discourse. But I never hear those arguments. Instead, I hear brain dead shit like this. You know? I just don't. Are they doing this CNN thing where they're trying to like pivot to the like center? What is happening?
Not just the defense contractors, it's also the oil and gas industry. And we cut off the Russians' gas supply into Europe. Now we're replacing their supply. So, and then there's the banks who gambled on the gas, and there's the banks who gamble on the defense contractors. So there's a world like probably hundreds of billions of dollars here on, not probably, definitely on the line for all those different industries. And they're constantly sending lobbyists to talk to politicians, including the White House, lobby, to make themselves more money. They don't care about our interests, the Ukrainian interests, etc. And that is what's driving a lot of these decisions, while the press puts on a play about humanitarian this, America's worried about escalation that, when in reality, most of the decision makers are worried about how much money everybody's gonna make.
Let's discuss the decision.
It's so brain dead. It's so incredibly brain dead that it's like, it's upsetting. Do they think this is like critical analysis, like Marxist analysis? It doesn't just like, bro, nothing matters because everything comes down to money. Okay. Thank you for your analysis. Thank you for everything that you've added to this conversation. When follow the money becomes a brain tumor, it is a brain tumor. Everybody knows that the world runs on money. That's not a like innovative, high IQ take. That's not special. You're not smart for figuring that out. Bro, what if people want to make money? Yeah, no shit. You use money to buy things. You use it to buy soap and food. Yeah, people want money. Idiot. But it doesn't just come down to that. If everything could be summarized and encapsulated with people like money, then there would be no point in studying history or politics. No point whatsoever. Sometimes things make money for corporations, but the thing that they're doing is also a good thing. So, for example, if a corporation decides that they can make more money from heavily promoting queer and pride causes during June, and then they do it, and they make more money, they also do something morally right, because even though it's rainbow capitalism, they're also publicizing heavily good, positive, morally right things. So there we go. So, well, they just wanted to make money. Well, the shareholders did, sure, but there were lots of people involved who correctly understood that there was a way to both make money and do a good thing. People sell water, therefore water is bad. Change my mind. These construction companies are only laying down the infrastructure to pipe clean water into these African villages because it will make them money. Well, yeah, they're being paid to do it. That's true. But the clean water is good. The clean water's good. That's all right. If you consider the fact that money is bad, the like pseudo progressive phrase, the money is the root of all evil. People think that's like a lefty phrase. It's not. Has led to so much brain rot. It's genuinely unbelievable. I don't even know what angle they're coming at this from. What? So they just want like no more arms to Ukraine? Like what are they suggesting? Faux populism, yeah.
Maker, shall we? Namely, the national security advisor who played a key role in persuading Joe Biden to allow for the transfer of the F-16s to Ukraine. And that person's name is Anthony Blinken. Now, what was Anthony Blinken up to after he was advising the Obama administration on foreign policy in Afghanistan? You know, the same foreign policy that extended and expanded upon Bush-era trash foreign policy. What did he do after that, right? That little space in time where, you know, it was between Obama and now the Biden administration.
Humanitarian work is my guess, hop guess.
No.
Working with the homeless.
No interest in that. In fact, he...
Want to get to the argument?
He was part of a consulting group specifically having to do with getting defense contractors in the same room as government officials.
No, really?
Whoa, that's crazy. Defense contractors interacting with politicians? That's an astonishing thing that definitely doesn't happen in all countries, always, for all of human existence. Politicians interacting with people who will be able to give them understandings, expectations, goals, objectives, and demands for their military capacity and the technology associated? That's crazy. That's wild. I never would have expected that. Jesus Christ. You guys, you realize that like socialist leaders meet with their military defense. You guys realize that like Thomas Sankara or Nelson Mandela, not a socialist, but you know what I mean. Any progressive, find me a leader who hasn't met with private companies that construct your country's military defensive capabilities. Where would that even happen? What? What? Of course they do that. Wait, I thought Mandela was socialist. He didn't lead as a socialist. He was sympathetic to a lot of socialist ideals. He's a great man. I'm not saying he's not. I don't want to compare him directly to Thomas Sankara because Thomas Sankara was a revolutionary, and Nelson Mandela was a prominent activist, not a revolutionary necessarily, but
in essence, lobbying for defense contractors between government jobs at State Department? Huh? Well, golly gee, I bet this is giant news to the people in Washington, and the reporters are going to clamor to cover this obvious conflict of interest.
So as Washington Post reported, let's go to graphic 5 here. Blinken played a similar role when NATO was at an impasse over whether to provide modern tanks to Ukraine. At the time, Germany was hesitant to approve the transfer of Leopard 2 tanks, a roadblock that was overcome when Blinken pushed the White House to approve the transfer of M1 Abrams tanks over Pentagon reluctance. Now, prior to Blinken serving as...
Okay, good. Hey, why was the Pentagon reluctant? Quick question. If the Pentagon, the politicians in DC, and the arms contractors are all on the same page about making the arms contractors money, why does the Pentagon seem kind of reluctant to supply more munitions? Because based on the analysis therefore provided by Anna and Cenk, it would seem as though they would be fully committed to anything. Why were they reluctant?
As Secretary of State for Biden.
Quit spamming, Irish Soak. Can you explain why Russia using nukes in Ukraine becoming a global pariah than losing the war is preferable to Russia winning the war and bouldering Poland? What? I don't want Russia to use nukes at all. Russia is not going to make its way all the way over to Poland. There's no way they get past the Donbass by any, I don't know what you're asking. What do you mean? I don't want any nukes to be used.
administration, Blinken ran a defense-related consulting firm known as West Exec. In fact, when Biden tapped him to be part of his administration, I remember researching this and writing a piece on this because I thought that there was, some conflicts of interest here. And surely with the development of this war in Ukraine, the conflicts of interest are pretty brazen and pretty obvious. So West Exec did not respond when asked for a list of its clients, but according to people familiar with the arrangement, they include Shield AI, a San Diego-based company that makes surveillance drones, and signed a contract worth as much as $7.2 million with the Air Force to deliver artificial intelligence tools to help drones operate in combat missions. Blinken and Michelle Flournoy, another person who is close with Biden, have served as advisors to Pine Island Capital, which raised $218 million for a new fund to finance investments in military.
First of all, $7.2 million in relative to our defense spending is literally nothing. That falls through the cracks of Pentagon spending all the time. Second of all, what is the point that's being made here? That people associated with the defense industry make money in the defense industry? Guys, did you know that the private contracting firms that we contract to buy and build our shit make money when we buy their shit? I know how capitalism works. I just want to know why it's wrong to give F-16s to Ukraine. I know they make money from it. I'm aware of that. I'm fully aware of how private corporations work. Companies like Boeing and Raytheon make and develop new military tech under heavy government scrutiny with government assistance, under government guidelines, and then when they've made them, they sell them to us, and then we have them, and they're very shiny. That's how it works. They learned about capitalism last week. They're like me saying ameliorate or litigate, okay? They're just very proud of their new knowledge.
And aerospace companies, among other targets. So Blinken has a history of working on behalf of defense contractors and getting them sweet, sweet deals with the federal government. And that's exactly what I see here. I see this as an opportunity to make money for these defense contractors. It's pretty disgusting because I don't trust, do we really trust the Pentagon when they can't even pass a single financial audit? They haven't passed.
But the Pentagon was reluctant to send the tanks. It wasn't the Pentagon that wanted to. It was it's the Secretary of State. Blinken is the Secretary of State. This is a foreign policy thing. This isn't yeah, the UK had to send them first. The UK just didn't want to send them alone.
Just one. Do we really have trust and faith in them in regard to where the military weaponry is ending up? Do they have a full accounting of it?
What? Is she suggesting that we're illicitly that the Pentagon, which didn't even want to send M1 Abrams, that we're illicitly, secretly sending them additional arms? Why would we not just roll that into the public announcement? Oh, fantastic! They're doing the Azov concern trolling. Is that what she's doing? Is she doing the what if these F-16 fighter jets end up in the hands of the Azov battalion? Is that what I'm about to hear? That like the Azov battalion, a ragtag militia group that has been mostly decimated by fighting in Mariupol and such, is going to like take 18 months of pilot training, take an F-16, fly it directly into the Kremlin, and start World War III? Is that what's happening? Okay, right, yeah. F-16s just go missing all the time. It's just like a little thing. You can just put it in your pocket, No big.
No, of course not. Don't be ridiculous.
Okay.
And so all of this is to enrich those folks. But guys, at the same time, the Ukrainians should get our help. And the Russians definitely invaded them, and they were definitely wrong. And it is definitely an imperial exercise. And so we're stuck in the middle ground here where we want to help. Good people like us want to help the Ukrainians.
Okay, then push the peace talks.
Without getting
this is literally Russian propaganda. Push the peace talks. They have already done that. Right now, Russia is approaching peace talks with the precondition that Ukraine cede all its territory, never join NATO, never join the EU, and are like and can like never militarize or whatever. Like the peace talks are a joke. It's Russia's fault.
Being robbed in the process.
Yeah, peace talks. Okay, we don't actually, the United States government isn't actually interested in ending the war.
Oh
Let's be
my
100%
God.
honest
Well,
about
that's
that.
definitely
Yes, it is. We want to have Ukraine as a strategic ally. We want to have Ukraine. They have natural resources, plentiful land. It would provide an additional buffer in between Russia and other European countries. We have an economic investment in it. The EU is a friendly trading bloc. If you think they care about money, then yeah, they do, of course. And broader economic prosperity is consistent with making more money. Not to mention the farm. Ooh, we're not profiting from this. It's so dumb. They're not even US F-16s. F-16s for Ukraine are expected to be older versions that have been in the fleet of US allies, especially those in Western Europe. So wow, they're F-16s that we wouldn't even need to restock. Do you think we're going to buy more 50-year-old F-16s after this? Like, oh, our allies have provided a stock of outdated F-16s. Time for us to spend $1 trillion refurbishing. What do you mean? This isn't a money thing. Yeah, this isn't. We're not paying to re-get these.
true because they're not encouraging.
We're resupplying our Euro allies. Yeah, with our outdated F-16s.
Peace talks, because that is not in the Ukrainian interest, if you ask me. And the reason is that the US has a separate interest is because the longer the war goes, the more Russia is depleted. And, from our national security interest, the people in charge want Russia as depleted as possible.
It's a proxy war.
So since it's a proxy war.
Jesus Christ. Literally, like, man, I didn't know that I would be able to have an anti-tanky debate going on TYT. Anyway, I'm just looking at current, like, top of the line American fighter jets. The F-16 variant that it seems still gets some use is the Fighting Falcon, which was developed, original F-16 model. Oh, no. The Fighting Falcon is a general term, so it's a modern iteration of that. The F-35 is the current. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I wanted to look through the whole thing, but it turns out that if you go through list of active U.S. military aircraft, it's actually colossal. I don't know much about planes. I'm sorry. I just know we're not taking F-16s out there.
And we're not the ones that are directly involved. Russia is. They're the ones that are getting weaker and weaker and weaker as their military gets depleted and run into the ground. And even if they quote unquote win and get parts of Ukraine, still their military will have been devastated. Their pipelines will have been shut down.
Or
the sanctions will
blown up.
Or blown up, and that literally happened. And it's probably one of our allies, if not us directly. And so we will take advantage of all of the things that happen because of the war. And so but that puts good people in the same basket as people who have no interest in humanitarian issues and are just trying to make a buck off this. And it's an uncomfortable basket.
I'm sorry. I saw that the dislike ratio was huge here. Damn, I see where Hassan gets his terrible Ukraine takes from. Absolutely brain dead analysis as usual from Anna. Go back to doing an hour on celebrities every night. You were more in your lane there. Anna's interviewing to take Tucker Carlson vacated spot in Fox News. Are these all new? Oh, this is new. I see. Top comments. Only one escalates, and that's Putin. The F-16 was developed in the 70s, and over 40 countries around the world uses them. Cenk acting like the F-16 is some kind of state secret is absurd. Not a good look. I tend to agree with TYT more than I disagree, but this is a really bad take. This is not an escalation of the war. This is really dumb. This is actually stupider than Hassan's takes. I'm not kidding. I actually believe that. No, really, I do believe this is actually like significantly worse than Hassan's takes on this.
And keep in mind that this is solidifying the alliance between Russia and China. So while this is a proxy war and the thinking...
Disagree? China has been hands-off for most of this. They've been clearly embarrassed by the behavior of Russia. China hasn't full-throatedly defended what Russia has done. They clearly don't like that they're like in the same hegemonic bloc as Russia. I think frustration would be an easier explanation. Yeah, Keffel's literally transphobia rots your brain, dude. Holy shit. Man, we had such a reasonable conversation. It's like I talked with Anna and I sapped her IQ. I yoinked her IQ through the computer. I can't believe it. My Ethernet cable just absorbed it.
among the State Department is that this is weakening Russia. It is also strengthening its relationship with China. I should also note that
I really don't think it is. I think that China wants to be done with them. I think China is probably done with like the embarrassing proxy states that it has to deal with, you know? I don't think China wants to have to deal with North Korea, but it has no choice. I don't think they want to have to deal with Russia, but they have no choice. I think that China is fully focused on their own internal development right now, which I don't think is going that well. But like China is so far ahead of these other countries.
China happens to be one of the countries that is pushing for peace talks, but the United States, because of its interests in wanting to weaken Russia, is really unwilling to push for that.
It's not our decision, and also the peace talks currently involve the precondition that Russia has laid out that are unacceptable. Yeah, India has been more pro-Russia than China has.
The thing I wanted to mention is that the United States intends to continue this war for at least 18 months, if not longer. If you don't believe me, take a look at this final video.
President Zelensky has been begging for them for more than a year. President Biden has resisted until this point. So what changed?
Nothing changed. I mean, we have been evolving our support for Ukraine as the war has evolved. And when we're talking about fighter aircraft, that's really not designed to help us in the immediate future here with the counteroffensive.
The training alone, John, could take 18 months, the defense secretary.
Well, that's an initial estimate. As the war has evolved, we've also started to have conversations with the Ukrainians about long-term defense needs, because when this war is over, whenever that is and under what conditions, they're still going to have a long border with Russia. They're still going to need significant defense support.
So,
okay, what's wrong with that statement? What's wrong with that statement? What's wrong with that statement?
At least 18 months just to train the soldiers in Ukraine how to use the F-16s.
It will not take 18 months to train them. New estimation is 4 months, taking this old one as a choice. This is from the 18th of May. They could have had access to this info. U.S. could train Ukrainian pilots to fly F-16s in 4 months. Okay.
At least 18 months. So no end in sight. Let's just be absolutely clear about that. And in those 18 months, I'm just curious, how many times does the Biden administration intend to tap Congress to appropriate hundreds of billions of dollars more to assist in the war effort in Ukraine?
Yeah.
While, by the way, simultaneously nickel and diming the American people, right? Right now.
Oh my God, she's pushing the idea that the money we're giving Ukraine has anything to do with our social spending. Bro, clearing out our warehouses of old equipment does not somehow reduce healthcare. There's no connection, literally none. This is so dumb. This entire video is just zero IQ right-wing talking points. This is f***ing insane.
Biden is engaging in negotiations with Kevin McCarthy to raise the debt ceiling, and he is seriously considering work requirements for Americans who are so poor, who are so poverty-stricken that they would need to do prove that they're looking for work or engaging in work in order to.
Yeah, that's bad. It has nothing to do with our giving resources to Ukraine.
Get welfare benefits that they clearly need because they're struggling financially. So nickel and dime the American people, continue this now new endless war with Russia. It's a proxy war. It's just
you stupid bit. If you don't want me to call you retarded, stop being retarded, okay? Listen, it's like the biological pronouns you're so concerned with. I look at you, I see your skull, and I think, wow, that's a. What are you doing? You kidding me? You're liberals. You can't even pretend to be leftists. What you're not even the cool. You can't even fake being the cool thing. What is up with you?
I don't know. I think that the way the U.S. has now decided to handle this is pretty disastrous and continues to get worse.
So some estimates have them being trained by the fall. It's impossible to know.
So somebody just informed him about that link that we just looked at. I see.
Bottom line is, Ukraine is doing a spring and summer offensive. They will definitely not, the F-16s will definitely not be ready by that offensive. But I also want to temper your expectations there, because I see a ton of BS in the mainstream media. Honestly, nothing but BS in that regard. Why? If you are new to politics and news and you didn't follow what happened during the Iraq War, Afghanistan, etc., you might not know that whenever the New York Times starts writing about a new offensive and around the corner after that, we're gonna win the conflict, that is untrue 100% of the time. I heard that same story in Iraq, I don't know,
This is just like Iraq, guys. It's just like Iraq. It's definitely just like Iraq. Yeah, is he saying that there's not going to be a counteroffensive?
80 times. Oh, a new offensive, and then we're going to end the insurgency right after that. It never ends.
There's no insurgency. There's no insurgency. It's two militaries.
This goes on and on and on forever, for decade after decade. And every time the Pentagon says us or our allies are doing a surge and we're going to win right after the surge, it is literally never, ever true.
Except for all the surges that have already worked in Ukraine as they slowly gain more and more territory. It's already happened. And again, this isn't insurgency. Ukraine isn't trying to conquer a country and deal with this nebulous terrorist force. They're fighting up against an army. This is so brain dead. This is so stupid. This is so dumb. Oh, also, yeah, not to mention the surge worked in Iraq. We won the Iraq War, by the way. I don't know why we would use that as an example. I wish Ukraine would have as easy of a time beating back Russia as we did kicking Iraq's ass.
Okay, so don't buy that load of crap. And then the last point is, so as you saw him there, well, even after the war, we're going to have to keep.
We also created ISIS. Yeah, that doesn't mean we didn't win in Iraq. Okay, I don't think anyone contests that we won in Iraq. The problem was that we just didn't accomplish anything after winning, but we conquered the whole country in like no time.
Sending them weapons. In other words, we found a nice little piggy bank here. And we're going to turn this into, one way of looking at it is Israel, where we're just going to give them billions of dollars in defense spending paid for by them.
Ukraine is like Israel. Those are definitely comparable situations. It's exactly the same. That's completely true. Yes, that is true. You know, beating back a Russian invasion and continuing to maintain an open-air concentration camp around Palestinians. Yeah, you know, one the other.
Taxpayer.
Great.
And going straight to defense contractors who one day will probably hire me for millions of dollars. Oh, that's the part of the sentence he didn't complete, but is also definitely true.
Which is great, you know, because the US economy is dealing with a surplus right now. Just a wonderful surplus, and we have unlimited resources to spend on forever wars.
What does inflation have to do with the availability of half-century-old fighter plane tech? What possible relationship is there between these forces? Yeah, I know she was being sarcastic, but what she said right there was unironically true. Like, there is no connection here. Vosh, we're really good at war. We will always win the war. We just also really suck at nation building. Well, that's a good thing Ukraine's already a nation, right? We're not doing any war or nation building. Ukraine's doing the war part. We're helping them out with our munitions, but they don't need to do nation building. They have the nation. It's their nation.
Great.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks.
No, do not thank me. Jesus. God, that was bad. At least everyone is trashing them for it. I just can't believe how bad it is. I don't even know why they're doing this. What does TYT stand to gain from like shifting to the right? What do they stand to gain from that? How do they benefit from that in any way? Centrists? But centrists don't care for this language. And no, tankies are not a viewer block they care about appealing to. Charlie Kirk is not going to put up with pronouns and emails from Fox producers. Is Anna really the person to talk about this? I don't know. I don't understand it.